Sell anything you want in 5 steps. The closer framework. C, clarify why the person is there. Why did they even reach out to you? L, label them with a problem that you plan to solve. O, overview their past experiences or past pains that they've gone through trying to solve this exact same problem. S, sell them the vacation. So you want to sell them what they're going to experience, what it's going to be like when they experience the result of what you're going to get them, not the way that you're going to get them there. E, explaining away their concerns. So if they're worried or they're hesitating or they're not sure, explaining away their concerns so you can move them towards the finish line. And finally, R is you want to reinforce the decision that they just made so that they feel good about it, and then you start the relationship off on the right foot. That's the closer framework.
I think the same way, where you don't need the most craziest closing line to close somebody, because I think it starts in the beginning. To me, I think you can fuck everything up within the first 5 seconds of the beginning. And when people have these, we were just on a show like 10 minutes ago. He's like, man, what's a secret closing line? And I never even thought of sales like that, because I said at the end, I've never used some wicked closing line where I turn back to my guys in the office. I'm like, did you fucking hear that line? And I'm like the in-your-face sales guy, very, very outgoing, but I never had one line that closed somebody. And it's always been so easy towards the end because it's everything leading up to the sale, where you shouldn't even try to attempt for the close unless you intuitively know that you have the close.
Dude, I say that all the time. It's like, lawyers don't ask questions they don't already know the answer to.
Correct.
I'm like, I don't ask for the close unless I know they're going to say yes. And so like I think that's where I do think some pattern recognition with sales, like you're like, I don't think they're there yet. You know what I mean? Like, what else are you concerned about? Like, what are you really worried about right now? And I think that's where like the asking genuine questions. And I think one of the things that I got from Layla is keeping the human first. I know that sounds kind of soft, but like actually having that as the frame, because I genuinely believe the person who cares more about the prospect wins. And so like if they care, basically in that moment, if you care more about them than they do over the long term, you will be able to convince them because you actually are putting their needs first. And that also means that sometimes, and I tell my guys this, if you get to the end of the conversation, you really don't think it's the best thing for them to do,
push away.
Yeah, and that's a successful sale to me. Because my point, the end point of a sale for me is a decision, not a sale. That's how I see it. And that way, my guys can win on every single conversation. I just want to get to a decision, one way or another.
And if you've ever been around someone who has absolute conviction, because conviction, and this is a key point, is not, do you believe in the product, do you not believe in the product, but to what extent do you believe in the product? How much and how deeply do you believe? That is the predictor of your ability to close, a massive predictor of your ability to close, which is why so many founders are always some of the best promoters for their businesses, because they believe in it more than everyone else, and they should be. But you can duplicate that ability in getting other people to believe by having a process in place to do so, and understanding that the training of the blocking, tackling in terms of like say this and that, say this and that, sure, it's important, it's good to have those. They're tools, right? They're tools that you have in your tool belt. But the fundamental work ethic that someone will fight and their desire to actually help someone is the difference between them thinking about themselves so they can get their commission check, and then thinking about the prospect and how this person is missing out on something that's genuinely going to help them and really transform their life and really solve the problems that they have. And they will fight for the sale so much longer because they genuinely want this person to win, because they genuinely believe that your products and services are actually going to help them. And so bridging that gap and understanding this for myself was so important, because a lot of times we get obsessed with the drills and all that stuff, and you have to do that stuff for sure. You have to drill, you have to understand how to say the words, all that kind of stuff. But the heart, if you could change the heart and you can depthen, right? Because it's not just, like I said, it's not just do they believe, but how deeply convicted can I get this team to be? And that is where having proof, where you're actively selling your sales team, that is where you will get the outsized returns, in my opinion, on increasing the effectiveness of the team, is that they truly and deeply to their core believe. And the last point that I was making is, if you've ever been around someone who truly believes in something, and it's like kind of insane, like whatever the thing is, like it could be aliens, it could be whatever, right? But like something crazy, but they are like so sold on it. There's an element of yourself that wonders if you're right, because you have conviction too in whatever you believe. And so you see their depth of conviction, their depth of faith in the thing that they have concluded. And the deeper it is, the more you start to question your own beliefs, which is why the pastors of huge churches typically have deep faith. And if like, there's a lot to study in terms of converting people literally, because you're changing someone's entire worldview. And so if you study the process that people come to faith and how they convince others to come to faiths in general, there's a lot of elements of selling that occur there in helping people make decisions to help themselves. And so the person who typically does the converting can never believe less in the thing that they're trying to convert someone into than the person who's being converted. The person has to believe in your conviction more than they believe in their doubt, in the story that they have been telling themselves.
If we just do the basics, always, we are advanced. You have an incredibly proficient sales organization if you call all your leads within 5 minutes, if you follow up 2 to 3 times a day for the first 5 days, and if you follow up thereafter on an ongoing basis, just providing value, making sure that you actually follow the script on every call. Like, the reason the script is there is because it's the most efficient version of the conversation. It's just committing to those basics, but a lot of people get fancy because they think they're like special snowflakes, and that for some reason when they talk to prospects, it's their magic, voice that somehow is going to win them over. But just clear communication and sticking to a calendar and a cadence does wonders.
One of the things that we do across all our companies, and I learned this acronym from my friend Sharon, BAMFAM, which is book a meeting from a meeting, which is that the best salespeople never finish a call with a prospect not knowing when the next time they're going to talk to the prospect. So that prospect should never fall into no man's land. They should never fall between the cracks where they're like, I don't know. And so if you get to the end of the call and they're like, yeah, let's connect offline and we'll circle back up and we'll find another time. No, you have to address it at that time, because if for whatever reason, like, a time obstacle is still an obstacle and you can resolve it right then. You both have your calendars up. You can both make the decision. If someone's like, well, I'm not sure, then you actually address the concern. Like, isn't this a problem for you? How much are you losing every day not implementing this solution in your business? How much of a problem is this in your life, and why isn't it this something that we'd be doing sooner, right? And so you want to address those things, because these are obstacles. And so if you just get off the call jollily, then you actually lose more sales. So you always book a meeting from the meeting. When I looked at one of our portfolio companies, we had a new sales guy who came in and crushed all of the records that had ever been done on that sales team. And it was a very experienced sales team. And I was like, what is this guy doing? Does he have higher close rates on the phone? And he didn't have higher close rates, but for some reason, he was able to get 30 to 50% more sales than everybody else. And I was like, okay, so how is he getting more opportunities? And so we got on the call, we listened to all the scripts, we were like, he's not doing anything different. And so we pulled the guy up, we were like, dude, what are you doing? And he said, I don't know. After I close the customer, I just say, who else do you know who might also want this? And I usually get like 1 out of 3 people to send me 1 or 2 other people. And I just do that on every sale because I learned that in my last job. And when he said that, it was like this big obvious duh that I'm sure was in the SOP at some point for the sales team. And of course, people get lazy because they don't want to scare the sale away. But by simply saying, hey, who else, very clear, who else do you know? Not do you know anybody? Yes, no. It's who else do you know? Who do you think would benefit from this, who you'd want to do this with, right? Because now you're actually asking them to solve a problem with their brain, not make a quick yes, no answer, which is what most people are just going to say, no, I don't know anybody, let's move on. Schedule rate, like what percentage of leads you book,
Yep.
and then what percentage of leads show.
Show up.
Yes,
Got
huge.
it.
Like some of the, I can make more money in most companies by fixing their show up rate than by increasing their close rate.
What do you do to increase schedule show up rate? Like, if you looked at an organization and their show up rate was 25%,
Sure,
right? And they're like, our closing sucks, and you say, wait, pause.
Yeah.
Where do you start with show up? Where do you start with that? Like, what do you do with when their book meetings aren't showing up?
So we owned a company called Allen, which was a scheduling software. So I got to see 4,000 appointments a day across all different industries. And so we got to test for absolute throughput. And we got to test every row. I had 2 data scientists who were looking at all these different things. So the number one lever on throughput in an organization is availability. As crazy as that sounds, we tested every single variable. It's number of actual time slots per day, 7 days a week. Which I find this hilarious because, like, obviously in the gym world, I would have gym owners being like, man, I can't close any of these leads. And I was like, all right, well, let me see your availability. They're like, oh, well, I take sales appointments from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And I'm like, and if they can't make that time, I'm like, well, then they're not serious. I'm like, okay, well, how's that working for you? It's not.
Right.
And so the thing is I tell this story about Layla. She was trying to get like her eyebrow something, whatever she does. And she was in LA and she called a spot and they were like, we have a time in a week. She's like, doesn't work. She called the next spot. We can see you in 4 hours. Called the next spot. And they're like, I can see you right now. She went there.
Done.
It's just about convenience. And so the number of total time slots per day and the increment of the time slot. And so I'm just giving you I'll give you all the different points, but this first one is number of total time slots 7 days a week. Then the next one is increments of time slots. So 15-minute time increments, for example, versus 60-minute time increments. It'll be more precise. And for whatever reason, at least in an internet world, we get higher schedule rates from internet bookings from that perspective.
For shorter time slots.
Yes.
Got it.
Now, the actual sales appointment can be 45 or 60 minutes, but the ability to start at 3:15
Got it.
or 3:05, whatever,
the more intricate it can be. Like if I have an appointment at 3:05, the likelihood the person is on time is way higher than 3 o'clock. Like you know this from sales,
Correct.
right? Like
150%.
3:05, like I gotta be there on
Yes.
that time. It signals detail, right?
Yes.
So the availability overall, the number of time slots per hour. The third one is, this is just a tip. We learned this one, is that you dragging appointments up boosts show up rates like nobody's business. And so let's say you have an appointment that you get a lead, you call them up, you qualify the lead, and you say, hey, I see here that you've got an appointment on Thursday, and today's Monday. Say, hey, I just had my 4 o'clock cancel. And so if you want, I can pull you up at 4 o'clock. And now sometimes if you have a tumor, let me introduce you to Sean. He's going to be like, if you have a setter closer set up, but you could even self-set to yourself. It's like, I've got a 4 o'clock, and now that I talked to you, it's going to be awesome. And they're like, oh, and same day show up rates are way higher than 2, 3, 4 days out. And so number of total time slots, increment of time slot, the proximity from when you talk to them to when you book the appointment, and then if at all possible, dragging that forward into the present. We try and do same day, next day for all appointments, if at all possible.
To cut the time frame down as to why they show up.
Yes.
And the truth of the matter is just, like I just tell people, it's like, salesperson always thinks like, oh, I'm the shit. I'm like, yeah, you think you're the shit, but then they got their son's basketball game and they just forgot about you after. So the more time you give to people, they just forget shit, number one. It's your job to sell them, but it's their job to get the information and run. You know, the outer world doesn't sell your product, so they get more distracted the moment they go to the other world. It's why you're trying to shorten down the time frame, right? Yeah. Now, what if somebody, so this is another big thing, like I have to answer this always as like the sales guy. Daniel, I booked an appointment, I had an appointment with Janelle, I followed up with her, I made the video with her, and I still got ghosted. Now what happens when, you have a client, you schedule a meeting with her at 4:15, they ghosted you. Is you follow up one more time right after they ghosted you? What have you guys found maybe in terms of data or something that works when people don't show up to the meeting? Do you just scrap the lead? Do you hit it back up one more time?
This will be fun for everybody. So I learned this from Sam Bakhtiar, who's the first person that I've mentored.
Oh, he was a wicked guy.
Oh yeah, you knew Sam, right?
Yeah, Sam was wicked, man.
So when I moved to California, because I wanted to get in gyms, I worked for minimum wage at Sam's gym for 3 months before I started my gym. Yeah. And so, because I looked on the internet and I had a white collar job, making good money, and I quit that to work, a minimum wage job at a gym. So my Persian father was horrified. But anyways,
Persian, that's right.
Yeah. And so I'll tell you exactly what I saw him do. He didn't teach me, but I learned it from him. Is that, and it'll make sense. So Janelle is a personal training client, and we're working out, and she doesn't put her weights away. I'm a personal trainer. I got another meeting I got to get to. What do I say? Do I say, hey Janelle, can you put your weights back? No, you're the trainer. You put that's a terrible, terrible frame, right?
Sure.
Now, I saw Sam do this, and I applied it to every single sale my whole life afterwards. He said, Janelle, I know you ain't about to leave my gym without putting your weights back. And then she's like, fine, Sam, I'll go put the weights back. And now it's fun, it's light, it's not accusatory at all, right? And so
I could see him saying this. The way you said it, I could see him saying it.
That's how I learned it from him, right?
Yeah.
His ghetto fabulous could get into it. And he would do that when he wanted to say something that was harsh to somebody. And so I would be like, Janelle, no, I know you didn't just ghost me on this. I'm heartbroken over here. I've got this big bowl of tears. I was like, I don't know what to do with it. I was like, I'm on the edge of a building. And you know what? I'm just messing with you.
Yeah.
I'm sure something came up. I was like, at the end of the day, I got this thing for you. I got the medium set aside. No worries. I'm sure something came up. Same time tomorrow work?
And just go right back into the meeting.
Right, just go right back in.
We have a portfolio company that we ran a high ticket upsell, and we tested 50K, 35K, 25K, and 15K. Wildly different price points. Basically, the revenue we generated from all 4 of those was identical. And so on one hand, you might think, oh, well, I'd rather just have fewer customers at $50,000, provided the margin on all the services are still pretty good. I would rather have 4 times the customers to then sell, keep, and then also have a crazy, in terms of word of mouth from those people saying that my thing is unbelievable. If you believe you're gonna get this big expensive outcome, then logically 25K and 35K, if you go and make $1 billion business, they're both worth it. It just it comes down to whether you can actually afford the difference. Some people literally can't afford the difference between 15K versus 50K. There's just some people who just literally can't afford it, even they both might wanna buy it. When you finally have learned and you know how to de-bullshit yourself and de-bullshit their brains to get them down to this final thing, you're actually talking to a person who's in power. They can't give the authority to other people. They can't blame the circumstances because it's about being resourceful overall, finding the time, making it work, getting out of pain. All you have now is just somebody who says, I get all that, I just need to think about it. And when someone says I need to think about it, what I want you to translate that into is, I need to avoid this decision for fear of making a mistake. That's what that means. Because what it really means is just, I just want the universe to make the decision for me. What a pussy move. Like, I'm not man or woman enough. I don't have the gonads, which are both sexes, by the way. I don't have the nads to make this call. So I'm just going to let the universe do it, so then I can blame the universe if it doesn't go right. It's just fear. So, big important note, we have exhausted all reasons outside of themselves. Now we're talking to someone who's at least in power. All right? So raise your hand if you ever thought or had a prospect say, I have to think about it, not sure I need a day. This guy still, he's like, not me. Everyone decides. Okay. As a fun side note, anyone know like the root of decide? So it comes from Latin decidere, which means to kill off. And so a good one is to even ask someone that question. It's like, we just need to decide. Do you know what the root of it is? Decidere, which means to kill off. So the question is, which future are we killing off today? We killing off the future of more of the same? Or are we killing off the future of everything that you said you wanted? Which future? Cool. All right, avoidance, I need to think about it. So this is the frame I think about, past, present, future. And this is an easy one for you. So when someone says, I need to think about it, you translate that into, I'm going to avoid this decision for fear of making a mistake. And you're like, cool. Well, let's talk about your past. The thing is, this is not a fast decision, right? You've been deciding this for years. How long have you been wanting to be in shape? My whole life. So this doesn't seem fast at all. You've been deciding this forever. Now we're just taking action on it. You decided a long time ago. Today we're just taking the first step. Didn't think about it like that. And there's another one, come this far, 6 inches from gold. It's like, listen, and this is one where I like to stack all the shit they've done to get to this point. We're like, listen, you saw an ad, you clicked it, you bought a ticket, you reserved it, you blocked the time, you flew out here, you got a hotel, you showed up at the crack of dawn, you had all these notes, you walked in here, of course you want to fucking grow your gym. Of course you're trying to lose weight, you blocked the time, you got in your car, you got all the way over here. This isn't a fast decision. You've indicated with your actions up to this point this is important to you. And do you think that maybe the reason you've struggled in the past is because you haven't been able to pull the trigger? Do you think needing to think about it is the reason you're here right now rather than where you want to be? Because you always need to think about it, which means you don't. And so the question is just, do you want to have another year of almost? Love this one. Do you want another year of almost being in the shape you want, almost making the amount of money you want, almost being the spouse you want to be, but not quite? And so the question is, how much has not deciding cost you up to this point? How are the last 5 years for you? Was that a cost? You didn't decide to do this 5 years ago, right? So would you say all that pain that you went through, was that a big cost? So when you think about it like that, I don't think it's that expensive, right? That's past. So it's getting them, and what we're doing here is we're agitating and reminding them of why they are here. To increase their action threshold, or rather, decrease their action threshold to get them to step over and make a decision. Does that make sense, what we're doing conceptually here? We're looking at their past decisions. I'm gonna go through all of them. Showing them how far they've come, explaining to them that maybe the reason that they're in the fucking seat today is because they have struggled pulling the trigger in the past. They've thought about doing things like this before, but they haven't been able to, they haven't nutted up, and today they need to. Otherwise, they're going to have another year of almost, and then we ask them if all the pain they've been through has been enough pain for them to make a decision. And that was the one, I actually had this last year. This lady was like, she was referencing a call that was like 5 years earlier, very beginning of Gym Launch. She's like, it's crazy to think I had a sales call with you 6 years ago and I'm kicking myself in the butt for not jumping in your program. Lol. So funny. So funny. I was like, yeah, you let a bad decision burn you twice. Once when you made a poor investment, the second time you let that bad investment prevent you making a good one. I remember the conversation. Right? Here she is, 6 years later. Same position. Same exact shit. But she couldn't because she had one bad boyfriend. She's like, no men for me. That's it. Just me and my cats. So, 2 is present. All right, so we talked about the past. All the things you've done to get here, all the pain you've been through, do you think not being able to pull the trigger is the reason you're sitting in the seat today, right? So now let's talk about present. So I love this one. I use the rocking chair close a lot. As far as I'm concerned, I made it up. So here's how the rocking chair close works. I'd be like, when you say you need to think about it, I was like, we don't really think we're gonna think about it, right? Because like, what's gonna happen? You're not gonna like drive out of here, go home, sit in a rocking chair on your porch and be like, am I going to join this program or not, right? Of course not. What are you gonna do? I was like, you're gonna get in your car, you're gonna check your phone, you're gonna see 6 mixed text messages, and you're gonna be like, oh fuck, I gotta pick up the laundry, I gotta go to the dry cleaning, I gotta pick up Timmy from school, I gotta get food, I gotta order a pizza, whatever it is, right? All this shit. And then 5 days from now, you're gonna put on one of your skirts, you're gonna check your bank account, and it's gonna be like, ooh, this is tight. And in that minute, you're like, oh, I should have done that thing. That's when you made the decision, right then. Then you keep living your life, and you do another 5 years until it gets painful enough. So, you don't need, and you've heard this one from me before, you don't need time to make a decision, you need information, and I'm your source of information. So what are the main things you're thinking about? How are you making the decision? So we're bringing it to the present, right? We're not letting them kick it off. We're saying, let's confront this. What are your main criteria? Now they're gonna say, I have no fucking idea because I don't know how to make decisions because I'm a victim. And you're like, oh, well, you know what? I've talked to victims before. Let me tell you how I teach them how to make decisions. Cool? Great. So here's how to make a decision. Product, us, you, access to money. All right? So do you believe the product could work? Yes. Do you trust us? Do you trust me? Do you like me? Do you think I have bad breath? No, I think I like you guys. Okay. Do you think it'll work for you the way you want it to go? Yes. Cool. Do you have access to the amount of money to start this thing or know someone who does? Yes. Right? Just made the decision. Let's do it. A lot of times, people just need to be walked through how to make a decision. People actually don't make that many decisions. It's kind of crazy. We make lots of micro decisions, they don't make big ones. So we just have to teach them how to make decisions. Many of you guys suck at making big decisions. You just have to learn having a framework. That's why all these investors talk about having a lattice work of decision-making frameworks. That's why I do a lot of framework stuff. Because I have to make a lot of big stake decisions all the time. Big strategic directions, big checks. Like you have to make big decisions. You have to have a framework of being able to do it and remove your emotions. If it checks the boxes, you do the deal. This one's really good. If you ever have the opportunity to do free trial stuff, it's just, or free trial and or money back guarantee stuff, the third one is fucking fire, which is, listen, can we both agree that you just need to make an informed decision? They're gonna say, yes, that's what I need, an informed decision, absolutely. That's taking the bait, that's what that is, all right? You're like, okay, you need to make an informed decision. Well, how can you make an informed decision without doing it? You got me there. You're like, so why don't we do this? Let's get you started. And if 30 days in, you hate it, let me know. Oops. Boop, boop, boop. There we go. And if you're 30 days in and you hate it, let me know. And I'll give you your money back. No big deal. But that way, at least you'll have made an informed decision rather than one that's made up in your mind about what I say or what you think it is. It'll bridge our communication gap. Because you've got an idea what it is in your head. I know what it is in my head, and I'm using words to try and communicate that to you. That's going to fail versus you actually doing it. Can we agree that that's a way more informed decision? Yes. Well, then let's do an informed decision. Let's get you going. Right? That makes sense? You think you close some sales with that? Yeah. Fwags. Okay. Decision definition. I already went over that one. So again, when we're in the present, we have to tell them which future we're cutting off. Right? Did you know it's from Latin? Decadere means to kill off. Which future are we killing off? The good one or the bad one? Cool. Future. So you guys getting this? Past, we stacked all the past pain, bring them to this point. Present, it's all about rocking chair, time, not information, helping them make the decision in the moment. And future is future casting, what I prefer to say, positive and negative. So 5 years in the future, what does it look like if you keep doing what you're doing? Are you broker? Are you in a worse marriage? Are you in a worse body? A lot of times, literally just saying like, what did you gain in the last 5 years? Cool. Let's tack that on. What do you weigh now? 230. Okay. 270. How's that feel? You can see them viscerally react to this. You're like, oh shit. You're negative $10,000. Let's go negative 50. Let's try that on. Maybe that'll jog your memory, right? they're like, fuck, I don't want that, right? And what we're doing is we're trying to decrease the action threshold so they walk across the line, make the decision. The next one, let's consider the options. This is the risk-free close. I mentioned it earlier. I just love this because, again, we're future pacing the scenario, right? Both these options are risk-free. Only one of them will get you closer to where you want to go. So what are we talking about here? They're both risk-free. And if someone still doesn't want to do it, then you have to confront what they're afraid of. Because at that point, it makes no logical sense, which means there's an emotional need. I love this one. Well, you're not going to struggle forever, right? They're like, well, no, I'm not going to struggle forever. You're like, right. Well, if you're going to start getting in shape eventually, you might as well do it now. Why would you not want to be in shape longer in your life? Would you rather only be in shape for like 3 years or for like 30? I promise you, it's way cooler to do it for longer, right? You're right. And so this last one is probably one of the strongest decision frames that I can give you guys, all right? And I'm emphasizing this on purpose. And this comes with all decisions. So like, if I'm ever lauded in the future, praised in the future for making good decisions, this is probably the single framework that I use the most, which is not, will this get me what I want, but will this get me closer or further to what I want? Because the thing is will this get me what I want needs a high amount of predictive value. Like to really say, this will get me that, really tough, and you'll be wrong a lot. And that can be very discouraging. But simply saying, okay, I've got two paths, this one will get me closer. Will this be everything I need to get there? Probably not. But will it get me closer? Yeah, I think so. And when it comes to education, in my opinion, the more educated you are, the closer you'll get to where you're going because you'll have context to see the path more clearly. And so the problem is, a lot of Sandys, right, are sitting there and they're like, well, you say it's this, and that guy said bacon's bad for me, and this guy says keto's good, and I don't know what the fuck, right? And the thing is, she doesn't have the perspective from which to make a judgment. It's all gobbledygook. And the thing is that we are all in Sandy's seat in different verticals of our lives. We don't have the perspective from which to make a judgment. And so trying to say, will the first fitness program that Sandy buys be the one that gets her to the promised land? Likelihood? Probably not. Some of you guys know many of your trainers who left you who have some weird things that they do and they teach people, right? And you're like, if Sandy starts with her or him, is she going to get the perfect body? Probably not. Will she be better than she was before she was doing something? Probably. And so if you can regress the decision-making framework to simply like, Sandy, if you walk out of here, do you think you're going to get closer getting in shape or further? If you stay and sign up, do you think you're going to get closer or further? Closer. I think that's all we got to do today. And if we do that one step closer, enough weeks in a row, I think we'll get to where you want to go. It takes the pressure off of making a perfect decision. Does that make sense? That decreases the action threshold and gets people to actually take a step and be like, Gym Watch doesn't have to be perfect. XYZ doesn't have to be perfect. It's just, will it get you closer? Does that make sense? Okay. That single framework has made me more money than anything in my life. Thanks. Appreciate it. And real talk, I bought a lot of things in the past that didn't get me the thing, but got me a thing that I used later that got me closer to where I wanted to go. And so then the question was it a good investment? Well, only based on my expectations would it be a bad investment. And so if I change my expectations of education in general, which is what I'm trying to encourage you to do with your prospects and yourselves, then you can shift what you expect to get out of something and you ultimately get more out of it.
My favorite closes, which I got from Jordan Belfort, is fair enough.
Sound fair enough?
I just love this close so much because it's like, fair enough, right? You make a concession, fair enough. So many times people are like, well, they made a concession and I'm a reciprocal human being. It's very hard for me to deny this request. And so yes, I do believe it's fair. And then you say, boom, then let's move forward. Someone says, that's a lot. And we say, no worries. What if we did this? Fair enough. They say, well, he made a concession. That sounds fair. Or if we did this, does that sound reasonable? That sound like a fair expectation? Yes, it does. Great. And then you can go to close the sale.